What's up, everybody? This is episode 117 in the Clappercast. I've been out for a while, but I'm still Burke, and as always, joined by Sean. Sean, how's it going, man?
Not too bad. It's great to have you back. I can only talk to myself for so long before I start I start believing my hot takes and get even more radicalized.
Yeah, it's been a weird month for me, so appreciate you doing those solo episodes. But yeah, I hear you. Those solo ones can be a bit weird when you're recording on your own and talking to yourself in a room by yourself.
Yeah, yeah. You're just waiting for someone to bounce back and like continue on the conversation, and then it's like, oh wait, that's not going to happen. I got to go with the next sentence too.
Yeah, I have to do so much work. Yeah, so I appreciate that. Pulling extra weight in my absence. So, but yeah, I mean, it feels like there's so much that's happened, and it's been some spicy news that have come out that's kind of surprising. Like the Montreal Canadiens, I think, is probably the spiciest.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got a ton to talk about the Habs this week.
Yeah.
So like, let's kind of go back to the start of it, and we'll start with the coach change. So the Montreal Canadiens fired Dominic Ducharme and replaced him with Martin St. Louis, of all people.
Yeah,
like out of left field, Martin St. Louis promoted from coaching like a U13 Pee Wee team to the Montreal Canadiens. So
yeah,
quite the trajectory.
Just as everyone expected, Martin St. Louis, and it started a kind of an interesting conversation where it was like, is Martin St. Louis the best current hockey player in that franchise?
Yeah, I mean, it's not wrong, because who else is going to take that? I mean, do we count Carey Price even though he's out? Do we count Shea Weber even though he's out? And then you look at the current skaters, and it's like, okay, well, Nick Suzuki's probably their best player.
Yeah. So is St. Louis better than him?
Like 100%.
I mean, he's probably got bigger thighs, for sure, bigger legs.
He's gonna crush some heads.
I don't know if it was like Kent Hughes or Jeff Gordon, but it was like St. Louis and like one of those guys' kids go to like the same college.
Yeah,
in the U.S.
Yeah, it was Kent Hughes and St. Louis' kid, or either went to the same college or on the same college team or something. So there's that connection right there.
Yeah, so that's kind of weird, but I guess it's a connection. It makes a little bit of sense, but it's like, I don't know, like he has got no coaching I don't know, like lineage or
yeah, no trajectory,
experience.
I'm not exactly opposed to bringing in an outsider in that sense, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know, what do they have to lose? Really?
Yeah, I guess so.
Like the season's lost. They're having one of the worst seasons in history. Why not bring in a guy? He's like interim to the end of the season. Why not bring in someone who just, see what happens, take a risk?
He speaks French.
There you go. And did you?
It's all the credentials you need
for Montreal. Yeah. Did you see like his intro press conference or hear about any of it?
No, I didn't see it. How'd it go?
So I didn't watch all of it, but this one interesting quote or sentence or phrase that he had was actually quite intelligent. And it was kind of like a thing that you want to see out of a coach. The thing that we all kind of talk about, how hockey players are quite rigid, and St. Louis was talking about how he doesn't want to bog his best players down with systems and structure, and he wants to let them use their skills, they use their creativity to create stuff. And I thought that was really interesting, because you usually see, like the best players are really saddled down with systems and structure and specific set plays that they have to run. And it really takes away from the creativity of the game. And St. Louis kind of wants to come in and let his players do what they want with the puck. Mm-hmm. Create a bit of creativity and kind of throw the opponents out of line a little bit and just keep them on their toes.
Yeah, I mean, you saw like that interview with like TJ Oshie on Spinning Chicklets, and he was talking about like, Hitchcock kind of like making hockey not fun and like being like playing the system, and like the system was basically like puck retrieval, like forced turnovers. So it's like, even if you had possession, like make the other team have possession basically and then go get the puck. And Oshie was like, why would I give them the puck when I already have it?
Mm-hmm.
Like I can make a move to get around them. Like why would I give them the puck just to get it back? Like it doesn't make sense. And like he's obviously a skill guy. Like you just see his shootout moves. It's like that guy's a skill guy. But and like I don't know. I guess to play like a little bit of like devil's advocate or like I don't know, like not conspiracy nut, but it's like okay, so are you actually like a coach that wants to be like that fluid with like your players? Or are you not experienced to like implement a system?
Because that's an
you're
interesting...
you're not an experienced coach. So it's like, does that come into it at all? Like, don't expect a system because like
I'm not gonna have one.
I've coached Bantam AAA or so I wonder. I just wonder if that's like part of it at all.
That's an interesting counterpoint. I feel like because who he is and because of the pedigree he has and because of the experience he has, like he's going to know. I mean, he's played in the NHL. He knows what the systems are. Like he knows what works, what's not going to work. So I think he'll know how it, but I do like the interesting counterpoint that provides.
Yeah. Maybe he knows like the forward side of things and then he can rely on like a defense coach or something for how to like do breakouts and stuff. But yeah, it's interesting because it's like Montreal also traded away a skilled guy in Tyler Toffoli.
Yeah.
So why don't we run through that?
Got the trade up here. So the Calgary Flames traded and acquired Tyler Toffoli, and in return they sent Montreal Tyler Pitlick on the move again. And side note, the Montreal Canadiens are now stocked with Pitlicks. They have Tyler, Rem, and Rhett all in the organization.
Oh my God.
A lot of Pitlick going on there.
Lots of pits getting licked.
They also got Emil Heineman. They got a 2022 first-round pick, conditional, it's top 10 protected, and a 2023 fifth-round pick. So that's a pretty damn good trade for Calgary.
Yeah.
Like Tyler Toffoli is a solid offensive player. He's going to give the Flames a ton of offensive depth to go beyond Gaudreau, Lindholm, and Tkachuk. Like that second line for Calgary is just going to get stocked a little bit better now. And they got him for very little. Calgary's in a place where they want to make a push so that first round pick is expendable. They have they want to try and go a bit farther this year. So that becomes on the table. And in terms of players, like they didn't give up a whole lot.
Yeah. And he's got like 2 more seasons on his contract after this too.
Yeah.
So like that's pretty good value for a guy that, last year, what he put up, like 35 or something like that, like something crazy.
Yeah, and the name Emil Heineman, the name was familiar to me, but Heineman was the guy that they got for Sam Bennett.
Oh, okay.
So they kind of just,
all right.
So he kind of got packaged in with a few other things to get to Foley. So it's not a terrible, trade tree for the Flames, anyways.
No, I mean, like Toffoli can score. Like they're obviously looking to boost their depth scoring a bit. He can come in and immediately make like that top 6, top 9, I guess, like a bit more stable. Mm-hmm. And he can stick around. And like I didn't see like St. Louis press conference, but I actually saw a clip from Toffoli about him joining the team. And there's a cool thing where like Lucic picked him up at the airport and like brought him home and had dinner ready. And, they were obviously teammates with the Kings. But like there's a few other guys on the team that he knows. So he was saying like it doesn't really feel like a new team. Like there was a lot of friendly faces and guys that he played with before, like some of the guys from the Canucks, some of the guys from the Kings. I think there's like what is it, Trevor Lewis or something like that is also on the Flames or someone like that. And so there's a few guys that he knows, and so it's like that's pretty cool just to come in and there's like kind of this neat blend of different teams you've been on.
Yeah, it definitely helps.
Even though he's only been on like 3 other teams, like it just seems pretty cool.
Totally, it helps the acclimation process where you know a few of the players, you know how they work, and you've got people who can welcome you into the dressing room and kind of give you that intro to the team and the organization.
Yeah, and like pick you up at the airport, like that's pretty cool
totally.
From Lucic too. And Lucic was probably only there for what a couple years in LA. So yeah, cool. Cool to see that. And yeah, I mean, like the Flames have been fucking good lately too. Like
They've been
they
carried by that top line so much. Like they are on fire, and Markstrom's still putting up a ton of shutouts.
yeah, Markstrom. I think there's a crazy stat like Markstrom has like 10% of the shutouts this year in the league or something like that.
I think Markstrom has more shutouts or the same amount of shutouts as the Habs have wins. something
Yeah,
something like that.
that's insane. And yeah, like they beat like Vegas like 5-0 or something like that. Like it was like they've just been like stomping a lot of good teams,
Mm-hmm.
and so just adding another guy who can score is
Yeah. And
on paper it looks like a great move, but maybe the chemistry won't be there. Who knows? But it looks like a good smart move for now.
did you see Martin St. Louis' quote about Toffoli today?
No, what do you say?
So Martin St. Louis says that from what he's seen, Tyler Toffoli was the captain without wearing the C.
Ooh,
So in
that's
in his brief little time, 2 or 3 games or whatever, St. Louis picked up on that. So what the Flames are getting another, what sounds like a solid veteran presence, a leader.
mm-hmm.
That's someone who could go
Yeah.
really well to help balance out that top line. That's more younger players.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
I think comparatively, anyways. I don't know how old Toffoli is relative to the others.
I think he's a bit older. I think he's
A few years.
on the
Yeah, a few years older.
yeah, he's 29. He's the same age as me. So, yeah, he's got a pretty reasonable contract with a couple years left on it. It's not going into perpetuity. Like it's not like 8 years left on it or anything. So, if it doesn't work out, it's like, well, maybe they could trade him next year or something like that. But it's funny to me because it's like, when the Flames got like, they got Markstrom, they got Tanev, they got a few other like, Canuck guys who aren't there anymore. But now they have to follow.
Yeah, they just keep,
so.
they're acquiring like the Calgary Canucks.
Yeah, so it's just pretty funny to see like those guys who were on that Canucks team when they made like air quotes made playoffs are now all in Calgary. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So I wonder how Canucks fans are feeling about that, considering how Toffoli left Vancouver. He wanted to stay and wasn't even offered anything and signed a reasonable contract in Montreal. But I mean, the guy must love playing in Canada, I guess. Hey, like
totally.
moving around between 3 Canadian teams, and
You must, some people like totally they're gonna feed off of the energy and the fans and just the atmosphere around a Canadian team.
yes, I think it's going to work out pretty well. But obviously the proof's always in the pudding. So I'm interested to see how he fits in there. But yeah, the Flames have been looking pretty sharp. Like just scoring a lot and getting some great goaltending from Markstrom. So, if they can get a little stronger, why not?
Yeah. Now, in terms of the package that the Habs got back, like, do you think that was good? That was sufficient for what they need? Do you think that's fair for what they needed out of it?
I don't know. I mean, like, the Habs feel like they're in a weird spot right now, and yeah, they need to kind of like acquire more picks, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about Heineman to know if he's like a blue chip prospect, a guy who will be on their team one day, or if he's not. I think Tyler Pitlick's like a okay player to have in your roster.
He's like a fourth liner. He's a solid energy guy. Could probably play third line if needed, but he's mostly a fourth liner, I think.
Well, I mean, it's Montreal, so he's probably going to be like second line.
First line center.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, like, I think it's like an okay acquisition or okay return for them, but I guess it's because Toffoli nobody's really having a great season on Montreal.
Yeah, Toffoli had like 26 points in 35-ish games or something, so it's not like out of this world, but not bad.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely a factor where it's like nobody's having a good year, so it's hard to really sell your assets when they're all underperforming.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, like, it's the right idea to get picks and stuff, but like, like a top 10 protected picks Well, I don't know.
Calgary, I mean, the way Calgary's playing, that's likely going to be probably low to mid 20s anyways.
Yeah, so it's supposed to be a deep draft. Is the first this year?
Yes.
Or is it? Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's the right move to get a first, even if it's a later pick. It's just I don't know about that prospect if he's how good he is. I don't know anything about him except for I think he's playing in Sweden. So even if he was to come over, it's probably going to take a while to get adapted to the North American game. But yeah, I mean, like, what do you think about it?
I think it's a little bit underwhelming, but I also might just be overvaluing Tyler Toffoli as a player. And what I'm really thinking is, like, when I see this package that they got back, I see the exact same thing that gets talked about with pretty much every other trade right now, is that 4-asset package where you've got a roster player, a prospect, a high draft pick, and like just a mid-round throwaway pick. And I see like that same pattern with this one. So like comparatively, it looks like it's appropriate, you know, looking at what, say, the package for Eichel was. Obviously, Eichel's going to get a lot more than Toffoli. So you kind of see like the downgrade on the assets. Like Pitlick's not as good as Alex Tuck. Heineman isn't as good a prospect as Peyton Krebs. The draft picks are, the other draft pick is a bit lower, I think. So it seems appropriate relative to what's happening around the league. But it's also interesting just to see that same style of package that gets talked about, like that 4-asset thing, and how common that type of a return seems to be talked about. Because I remember reading the same type of thing was Arizona's ask for Jacob Chikrin. And I imagine, Montreal's ask for like Petrie is probably going to be the same. So that seems to be like a common package where that 4-asset return is, kind of taking charge as like a main ask for better players.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see like them trade away a guy who's got like a pretty reasonable contract for a couple more seasons. But I think it's good value. I think Calgary gets the better end of the deal so far.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you can't. It's too early to tell, but it just seems like they got a pretty good player for giving up relatively little. But obviously, if that first round pick turns out to be an absolute stud, people are going to be like, "Oh yeah, that was highway robbery by Montreal."
And then at the same time, though, it's like, okay, maybe Montreal gets the better player in the end of it, but if Toffoli comes in and helps Calgary make a deep playoff run, well, it's like they got what they needed out of it.
Yeah, and like Toffoli had absolutely insane year last year, and he did really well when he joined Vancouver. I think he had like 10 points in 10 games or something like that.
Correct.
And so it's like, he seems to do well in a new place right off the bat. So
I guess Toffoli too will have the coach connection. I just sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just clued into that as well, looking at remembering his past with the Kings.
That's true, yeah.
So, I mean, Toffoli's been 20 to, he's a 30 goal scorer once in LA. Oftentimes he's like a 20 goal, 40 to 45 points. Yeah, closer to 40 points is kind of his level, which is okay for a second liner.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it just sucks for Montreal because it's like you're basically, you're getting rid of one of the more skilled guys on your team and looking to the future now for sure, which is the right thing to do, but it always sucks. And yeah, if Toffoli just lights it up in Calgary, it's like, oh shoot, we should have asked for more.
Exactly.
Because like when you texted me to say like they got Toffoli, I was like, oh, are they gonna get like Shillington or something? Like that's who I kind of thought they might have been sending back. Like
sell a bit high on Shillington.
And like Shillington and like maybe like I don't know, one of those picks or something. But it's just interesting that going hard on the picks. But anyway, yeah, I mean like we'll see what Calgary does. It's just kind of cool to see him coming in and excited to see how he plays on a pretty good Calgary team already.
Yeah. I mean, a secondary smaller trade that's worth mentioning because of the player involved, but the Habs also acquired Andrew Hammond.
The Hamburglar.
So the Hamburglar is on his way to Montreal. I joked when I saw that he was going to come in and save the season. go on another 21-2 stretch or whatever it was, and help the
There's
Habs.
still time.
Yeah, but
make playoffs.
But that basically
Get
just
hot
means
at the right time.
like Andrew Hammond is like the 5th goalie to come in and play for the Habs this season, or like the 5th goalie in the organization. He's probably like the 3rd stringer now, taking over from Montembeault. But the Habs have had like 5 goalies play, and then that's not including Carey Price, who's been out. So like they're really stretching their goaltending depth.
Yeah, and that's tough to do. That's tough on a team.
Like you kind of see, it's like it's wearing them down, because like they can only do so much when they're playing like a 4th string goalie.
Yeah, and they're icing like Laval basically. Like Nick Suzuki, Petrie, and the Laval boys.
Well, that's the thing. Even like Petrie has been absolutely horrible. Like he's been invisible. Like he gives the like his mental game just is not there right now. So he's like, something's going on. Like either he is just fed up with the organization, or his living situation, like whatever's going on for him is just taking a toll on him. So his play has just been
yeah, I mean, there was that rumor that like he requested a trade. I don't know if it was ever confirmed.
It kind of went away pretty quickly and quietly.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like he's 34. He's got 3 more seasons at 6.25. He's having his like worst season ever, and he's got like a full no move clause. So it's like, how many teams are going to be knocking the door like on for him right now? Like Klingberg is apparently like out there, like maybe looking to get moved. So it's like a guy like him who's I think a little bit younger and has a little bit more to give, might be the guy to get to target. And Chychrun, right? So it's like,
I mean,
I don't think people are going to be wanting Petrie right now.
There's so many defenders. Like someone's going to maybe take a flyer at the end, because like I think in the past few weeks, I mean, I've talked about Jacob Chychrun, I've talked about John Klingberg, I've talked about Petrie. Then there's other guys like Ben Chirot's like a major candidate on the trade bait board for the upcoming month or so, and Mark Giordano apparently. I've seen Rasmus Ristolainen is a possible trade target as well, depending what the Flyers decide to do. So it's like there's so many defenders that there's going to be quite a market for them. But I even, when I talked about Petrie a couple episodes ago, I even mentioned like Detroit takes him. They've got cap space. They could use an experienced defender. Like, yeah, it's not going to be competing for him, but he's basically like, he's from Michigan. He's from the Detroit area, I think. It's a situation that could work, and like they've got the cap space. They could use someone like him to come in, and it'd be weird having like him and Seider both on the right side like that. But I mean, they just did it with Petrie and Weber. So yeah. I mean, it's possible a team like that takes him on, and I think it's just interesting. Like with that cap hit, like would Steve Yzerman like ask for something basically to take him? So that Montreal has cap space. So it's like a trade deadline deal for cap space for the next 3 years or whatever. So yeah, it's just a interesting situation in Montreal, and it's just like all these guys are rumoredly wanting out. So maybe that was a solid to Toffoli too, right? Like hey, we know that you want to be on a competitive team, and maybe there was a request, maybe there wasn't, but they're able to move him and get something for him, because they probably know that like the next few years are going to be rough for Montreal, and he's almost 30, and he wants to win more, so maybe there's some other guys that'll go through the same thing, like you mentioned, Chirot. So I think he's going to be a guy that teams are going to be wanting off of Montreal, because he's a big physical D-man that can play that Stanley Cup playoffs type of game. It's unfortunate that he just injured his ankle over the last weekend, so that's really going to make that part difficult. Yeah, well, we'll see, I guess. Who else is selling defensemen in front of the deadline? There's lots of rumors going around right now of teams kicking the tires on people. But yeah, so Montreal had a coaching change. It was interesting because they, Dominic Ducharme got to the finals last year,
Then there was that vote of confidence earlier in the season by Bergevin.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention that.
You know, I thought he kind of got a free pass this season just because of the roster and not having Carey Price, but you know, new management. I guess they kind of want to bring in their guy and play the game their way,
which is fair. You bring in your new philosophy, and you kind of want to get the organization going in your own direction. But it is kind of weird to, you know, not just ride out this season and see what you have. Like it sounds like there was just a disconnect with the players in Ducharme as well. That they just weren't clicking. There was just something not meshing between coaching staff and players at that point. And they just kind of wanted to bring someone else in, maybe someone a little bit younger, a bit more energy, or someone a bit more energetic in the position or something. Who knows? Yeah. But it does continue the tradition of a Montreal GM giving a coach or a player a vote of confidence. We're not trading, we're not firing, and then immediately doing the opposite.
Yeah, shades of PK Subban.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then, you know, Montreal wasn't the only team to fire their coach. You know, you're well aware of this one. Sean's raising his Oilers jersey to the camera right now.
The Edmonton Oilers got rid of Dave Tippett. They fired him and promoted Jay Woodcroft, who was coaching the Bakersfield Condors, the AHL affiliate, and they promoted him.
Also, Sean is crying right now, tears of joy, not sadness. He's a big Tippett fan.
Yeah, I had been frustrated with Dave Tippett for a very long time. I thought he was regularly making just completely misguided roster decisions and lineup decisions, and his utilization of players was terrible. And it was a long time coming for me to see this change. I just don't think Dave Tippett was working out with what the Oilers needed. And I'm quite happy with this change. I mean, all of the changes end up being cautiously optimistic, pardon me. But, you know, there's a little bit of hope with this one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like, after that losing skid, it's like there's clear that there was something needed there. And, I thought it was interesting that Ken Holland had those comments about, like, you know, like, using, like, young players, you know, and kind of giving them, like, opportunities and stuff, and then, like...
See, that was one of my biggest...
like, just not doing it.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest criticisms with Tippett, is he's got these younger players. He's got Ryan McLeod, he's got Tyler Benson, he's got Bouchard, he's got Lagesson, he's got all these defenders, all these players that need playing time.
And Skinner.
And Stuart Skinner, who seems to be being, like, groomed as the goalie of the future for Edmonton. And all of these guys are just getting scratched, demoted, get, like, 4 minutes of ice time if they even play. And it one of the few times that this actually kind of worked, where the decision I feel was the right one, is that when he had Evan Bouchard playing on the top pairing for a while, because he was doing well. But at the same time, like, he still has to put Tyson Barrie on the power play. Even though Barry's not doing anything, Bouchard has more points. Bouchard has a better plus-minus. Like, Bouchard was doing better than Tyson Barrie, but wasn't getting the time to, you know, do even better. Yeah. And it's just stuff like that. It's like constantly putting Kyle Turris, Devin Shore, Derek Ryan higher in the lineup, Zach Cassian higher in the lineup, when they're doing nothing. But Ryan McLeod, Tyler Benson, you know, these younger players doing well, Jesse Puljujärvi, keep getting demoted or benched after one mistake. Meanwhile, some of these other veterans just have, like, free reign to do whatever they want.
Yeah, it's like, it was interesting when Ken Holland said, like, that young player, like, supporting young player development.
Yeah.
And then, you had, like, the complete opposite happening on the ice, so it's like that dissonance between the two.
Yeah.
And it was, like, not really surprising when they fired Tippett soon after that, because, like, you had told me, like, Mike Smith started, like, back-to-backs and had kind of gotten hurt, and then, like, Stuart Skinner was just there, and it's like, why don't you use the young goalie, like, for one of those...
Stuart Skinner also has the best stats of any Oilers goalie this season. But he's not getting the chance to play.
Yeah,
you know?
Dumb.
And, yeah, like you mentioned, that final thing about Mike Smith. So basically what happened is Mike Smith, for the second time this season, missed a month due to an injury. He comes back. He plays his first game back. The team, he gives up like an early goal, and the team loses 4-0 to Vegas. They play the next night against Chicago. It sounds like what happened is Mike Smith started himself. Like Dave Tippett just let Mike Smith start himself the next night. First game's back on a back-to-back, and Mike Smith proceeds to let in the first 2 shots, and they lose 4-1.
To Chicago.
To Chicago. Exactly.
We're not talking about the Chicago game, Sean. We're not talking about Mike Smith. We're not talking about the game against Chicago. Those are 2 points you need, and obviously Ken Holland thought the same.
Yeah,
like you got to beat the Hawks at this point. Like you cannot lose those points, and
you can't just because
you can't let the players make the decisions.
Yeah.
Too.
Just because you're
you've lost the
with
room.
Smith, like Tippett and Smith go back like a decade to Arizona.
Yeah, to Arizona, right?
Like they've been together in Dallas, they've been together in Arizona, like all over the place. Like you can't let your players make that decision, and just because you're BFFs with the player, you can't let them have preference like that. And we saw it,
like you said.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say like you said, like Stuart Skinner's got the best stats.
Exactly. And on a back-to-back, why do you go with the goalie who just lost versus the one who has the better stats who didn't play yesterday?
Yeah.
And, we saw Tippett doing similar, best friends with Smith. We saw him do this in the media with Mike Smith versus Mikko Koskinen. Like, yeah, Koskinen struggled for a bit in December, but so did the entire team. Nobody was doing anything. But Dave Tippett comes out and specifically calls out Mikko Koskinen. We needed a better game from our goalie. And he calls him out to the media, calls him out publicly. And when Mike Smith has a bad game, it's like, oh yeah, the team needed to be better. And it's just like there's a clear favoritism, preference. Like Mikko Koskinen is the reason the team was so good early in the season. He was great to start the year when the team was doing well. And the entire team started slumping. You don't publicly call out one player when the team is scoring like a goal and a half per game.
I got a couple things on that. First is like for Mike Smith to like he missed a month, and then he's like, oh, let's play him back to back. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. That's so dumb. Like, oh, a guy who just came back from injury, let's push his physical limits.
The 39-year-old who just came back from the second month-long injury absence of the season.
The guy whose body is falling apart, let's push it. That's absolutely idiotic. And then about Koskinen. I saw this interview that I don't know who it was, but during the All-Star break, somebody asked Connor McDavid, like, oh, who's an unsung hero on the Oilers? And McDavid like took a second to like think, but he's like, oh, good question. Like I think like Mikko Koskinen is like, a guy who's unsung on our team because he's been good for us, and when he plays well, like we play so much better. I thought that was a good way of putting like. I thought that was a good way to put it because it's like, if he plays bad, like, yeah, it's tough. But, like, when he plays well, like, he gives us a chance to win.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's any goalie, right? Like, if a goalie's playing good, you have a better chance to win. And it's just like,
when your goalie gives up the first 2 shots after he plays the night before, oh, look, the team's not doing well either.
Well, and also I thought it was a good coach, or a good, not coach, but a good captain answer because he's like, I'm gonna say the guy that got called out earlier in the year.
Yeah, and
by the coach
I love
in
that
the
answer
media.
From Connor.
It's a good captain. Like I'm gonna have my teammates back, sort of answer, right? And it's like he took like 1 second to think it and was like, yeah, Koskinen. Whether like maybe there's other guys that are more unsung heroes on the team, but like he knew that like Koskinen might have needed that, right? Like
that vote of confidence from your teammates.
Yeah, vote of confidence.
From your captain.
Exactly.
It's I really, I'm with you. I really like that move from Connor to give him that vote of confidence to show him that the team's got his back.
Yeah, and it just goes to show like the room, like there's still some bonds there despite like the coach, right? Like
that the players in the core, the people who have been there, like it's a solid core. It's a solid group of people.
Yeah, for sure. The change needed to happen.
Yeah.
And
I think
I think the other big change is they added Evander Kane. So I wanted to ask you
God.
just on.
I had my episode a couple weeks back where I trashed the organization for bringing him in, and I'm still not particularly happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
I get you want to give you want to do your best to game the system and maximize what you can get out of your cap space and out of your roster spots, but it's like I don't like it because of his past and who he's been as a person and who he's been as a teammate. That it's just frustrating to see them kind of disregard all of that and just I want to bring this guy in because he's cheap and I want to give him I want to call it a second chance, even though this guy's had how many chances, how many NHL organizations has he destroyed on his way out? Bridges has he burned? It's let's bring him in immediately.
More than one.
And I mean, now he's played for a couple of weeks, I think, at this point, and I barely notice him. He's not he's scoring a couple of goals, he's making a couple of hits, but he's not this major impact player.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't really watched him play, but aside from having a few early points, I haven't really heard anything. And I think most of his goals have been deflections.
Pretty much, which I mean, that's, to be fair, that's kind of the style he was brought in for, is kind of a bigger physical presence, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I don't care how the goals happen, just that they're happening.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's I mean, if it works, it works. But if it doesn't, it sucks. But
yeah.
I mean, they were at a point in the season where it's why not? I guess.
True.
But yeah, it kind of sucks to see your team kind of bring in somebody that has a weird reputation like that. What's next? Slava Voinov or something.
Yeah, I mean, to go back to the coaching chain for just a second, because we never even talked about Jay Woodcroft coming in. So Woodcroft has been a video coach in Detroit, so he's got the connection with Holland, obviously. He was a video coach in Detroit back in the late 2000s, and he joined San Jose's coaching staff as an assistant to Todd McClellan. Came over with McClellan when McClellan coached the Oilers, so he was an assistant there. He was the special teams coach when the Oilers somehow had the worst special teams in the league, despite having McDavid and Draisaitl. So that was, quite promising. But he also has spent the last 3 and a bit of seasons down in the AHL coaching the Oilers AHL affiliate and developing their prospects down there. And we've seen over the last 2-3 seasons, the Oilers actually have a prospect pipeline, that they're getting these players that they've drafted and developed in the organization coming in and supplementing the NHL team for once. So we've seen a bit of a turnaround there, and Woodcroft, obviously, as the head coach, has been kind of, taking charge of that. And I think it's great to bring him up to the NHL now, because so many of the players on the NHL team have played for Woodcroft either as an Oiler or as a Condor. And all of these younger players, you mentioned Holland had that thing about, giving the younger players opportunities. So Woodcroft coming in, he knows these players. He's going to give them opportunities that he knows they'll succeed in.
Yeah, he's a coach that'll do that. So
yeah, and he's a younger voice. He's familiar with the team, the organization. So I'm quite happy with it. And I haven't been able to watch the first couple of games too closely to see a systems change. But from what I read, there's going to be eventually a huge switch in how the Oilers conduct their breakouts in neutral zone, where Woodcroft tends to play the center way lower, way farther back, and not stretch like Dave Tippett did, because a lot of the time the Oilers are giving the puck away in the neutral zone when they try and have these long stretch passes, and they just get stopped at the blue line, intercepted, miss, whatever. So they want to, if he wants to bring it back for shorter passes, have the center closer to or farther back to support the breakout and support the defense in that, especially when you have guys like McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins running that lower center spot. That could be great for them to stop giving the puck away in the neutral zone as much.
Yeah, and that big stretch, when it works, it looks great. That Duncan Keith pass to McDavid at the blue line, it looks really awesome when it works. But it's when it doesn't,
you've got so many teams that clog up the neutral zone now with that. They kind of see what Vegas and Carolina succeed at, and they how can we work that in? And it's clogging the neutral zone and aggressively forechecking in that way. So it's it's not going to work very well. You need to kind of switch gears a little bit and help support the breakout a bit better.
Yeah. So hopefully the team has enough time to kind of learn any new systems and hopefully make it into playoffs and see how they do.
I mean, right now, I'm just bringing up the standings. Right now they are 2 points out of the second wildcard spot in the West and 2 points out of the third divisional spot with, a couple games in hand, with a game in hand or a couple of games in hand over the teams they're chasing. So, I mean, they're about to play. This is a huge game, actually, right now. In like 10 minutes, is puck drop Oilers, Los Angeles Kings, and the Kings are in third in the Pacific right now. So Edmonton wins, and they're back in a playoff spot again. So this is a really, really important game for Edmonton coming up tonight. So it'll be interesting to see how the team responds and how the team comes out, because the Oilers are the worst starting team in the NHL this season in terms of giving up early goals, giving up the first goal, getting scored on immediately. It's like they might as well give the other team a 1-0 lead at puck drop. So I really want to see an Oilers coach find a way to motivate the team at the beginning, because this is an issue for years and no one's been able to fix it.
Yeah, I'd like to see that kind of like that 2017 Vegas mentality of like, let's get the goal like right off the bat.
Get a goal 10 seconds in and then you're good. You've got a good base to build on.
You know who the best team in the league right now is for scoring the first goal?
Who's that?
Capitals. Surprising.
Really? I was going to say, are you joking or is that actually a thing?
No, it's like something like 36 times or something like that.
That's pretty good.
But they've been not great lately. There is a bit of a gap between them and like the Blue Jackets in that Metro, but
they're safely in a playoff spot, but at the same time, like, you don't want to kind of just chill out and take it off.
If they keep playing that way, they'll slide out of there, and the Red Wings will take that spot.
The Red Wings in the playoffs. That would be quite a surprise.
I honestly think that if they made it, they could be pesky.
That would be fun.
Annoyance. It would be.
You'd have so much energy around it.
And it would be funny if they ended up playing a Canadian team and Tyler Bertuzzi couldn't play in Canada. That'd be stupid. But yeah, it's I haven't seen the Oilers play since the coaching change, and since I think they played the Capitals once and Evander Kane. I think that was the first game. I watched a bit of that one, but I don't know. We'll see if it's enough to secure their spot in playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, the Pacific is weak, so they have a very good chance, because the California teams have sort of trailed off a little bit, especially as, Vegas and Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver have been a bit better.
These California teams are so surprising. Like, they keep like rotating spots.
Yeah. San Jose's really trailed off, but Anaheim and Los Angeles being in playoff spots, I had written off the Ducks in my season previews. I was like, yeah, they're last in the Pacific.
I think everybody did. Yeah. I think everybody did. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see, I guess.
I do want to give a special shout out. This was a milestone that we'd all been watching and checking in on over the season. But Brad Marchand has set the NHL record for most time suspended. He's been suspended for the 8th time now.
I thought you were going to mention Crosby getting his 500th goal tonight.
Oh, that happened today. Oh, congrats to Crosby.
Yeah, but no, the Marchand thing is far more important.
Brad Marchand suspended 6 games for high sticking and roughing Tristan Jarry. It's like, you're going to get suspended for that. He acknowledges it was not cool. He doesn't think he should have been suspended, but it's like, you can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that.
That's literally what it is. And because of his history, you're going to get a lot because of your history.
Also, special shout out to Vegas with their cap fuckery that's going to be going on. The news about Alec Martinez has really disappeared, because originally he was going to come back, and now it's like, oh, Eichel's playing on Wednesday, and Stone and Martinez are on IR.
They can. If I did the settings right on Cap Friendly, they should actually be able to get Martinez back with Eichel.
I don't know. It's just like he's been on Robida Island all
Maybe I'm misremembering how I set that up, but yeah.
And then like now Leonard is apparently hurt. There was a rumor that was squashed today of like Fleury coming back to Vegas, and yeah, it's just Tampa.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Tampa and their cap fuckery, like
they're
the league really needed to hammer down on that. Like it's just gonna keep happening.
totally. You're gonna end up with a contender who like has a good player that they don't necessarily need go on IR, LTIR for the entire season, only to conveniently come back for day one of the playoffs. And like this year, I mean, Tampa Bay can still do this. There's still time, but you know, Vegas is doing it by putting Mark Stone on LTIR to get the space back to bring Jack Eichel. And surprise, surprise, day one of the playoffs, Mark Stone's going to be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's just like fantasy hockey, where it's like you just trade for all the guys that are hurt, so that like later in the season you can activate them.
Yeah,
and then
it's like day one of
teams.
It's like right after the draft when everyone rushes to the free agent pool to add all the injured players they can.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have I have 2 teams with Eichel on it that I drafted. So it's like, yeah, I know I'm abusing it, but I'm also not a general manager of a real hockey team.
Yeah, there's also strategy involved in that too, where it's like, yeah, you go pick up someone who's injured, but like if you're willing to sit on them the whole season and waste an IR spot, like, yeah, go ahead, do it. Bring back someone else who's going to be really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just if like Vegas wins doing this, it's just going to be so stupid.
It will be.
Like, I don't want this to turn into.
It will be number one bullshit.
Thing.
Number one bullshit.
It'll be number 2 bullshit.
Number 2 bullshit.
Tampa did it first. Never forget. Yeah, stupid.
That wraps things up for this time here on Clappercast. Make sure you rate and review this episode and toss a follow or subscribe our way. For more content, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram at Clappercast Media or on Twitter at Clappercast. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll be back next week with more hockey talk.